Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday, July 19th, 2021. Another historic day for planet Earth. Broadcasting live from Chicago, Illinois, another Signals Q&A session. Bringing to you all the important music theory news that you've inquired about. Well, hopefully all of the music theory news that you've inquired about. Yeah, so there we go, folks. Hello. That's my news style intro for you. I've never made one of those before, and I thought, hey, I've got like 20 minutes before the stream starts. Let's whip together some snare drums, some horns, and there you go. The 7 o'clock broadcast, right? Nothing but good news this evening, though. So, hello, everybody. Good to see you all. We have some really easy questions this time. There's going to be a lot less music theory involved in this Q&A than there was in last week's. But I do want to dive right into the Q&A, and then we can answer to some of the... Well, I actually want to answer some questions first here. So we're going to actually start off with a music theory PSA, okay? This is one of those questions that comes up over and over and over again. It's one of those confusions that ends up popping up over and over again, so I just want to address it right now. And it's going to kind of complement one of the things that we're going to be approaching later on in today's Q&A. So here's what I want to talk about, is this question right here. If I ask you, what is the 7 chord, all right, in A? That's the question I want you to ask yourself, all right? What is the 7 chord in A? Now, depending on who has taught you music theory, and depending on where you studied music theory, you're going to give a different answer. And this is where, you know, it's like we're all talking about the same things, but we all sometimes use different terminologies. So one of the questions is going to kind of approach this topic here. And I want to explain 2 things. I want to apologize for that sound. And then I want to explain 2 things. Sometimes people refer to this chord as being a major chord. So this is possibility 1. It could be a major chord built off the 7th degree. All right. In which case that would be a G sharp major chord. All right. So that might be the correct answer. All right. Some other people might say that the 7 chord in A, and this is the correct answer, which would, if you're diatonic, would just be G sharp, a G sharp diminished triad. All right. So, I mean, what I'm saying is that depending on the way you think, this is the way you're going to say the same exact thing. So, like, this is the way I like to describe it. Okay. When I see a Roman numeral, that Roman numeral is telling me the scale degree. It's telling me the actual scale degree. That's the way I like to use music theory. That's my interpretation. So if I see this, if I see a Roman numeral 7, I'm going to think of it as a G sharp major, okay? Because that's my system of music theory, where we're using the Roman numeral to not only tell us the scale degree, but it's also telling us the chord quality. Is it a major chord? Is it a minor chord? Is it a diminished chord? Other people will say, hey, we know we're talking about major, you know, so let's just call it 7. The 7 chord. We don't have to call it the flat 7 chord or the, you know, we know this formula so well backwards and forwards that people just start abbreviating their Roman numerals. They'll either just do them all uppercase or they'll just do them like this, lowercase, without talking about the scale degree associated with it. So if you look at this, a lot of people are going to write out their minor chord formula like this. All right. And it makes perfect sense because if you know the minor scale, if you know that, oh, I've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If I know my A minor scale and if I have this memorized, this is what a lot of people do. I don't really like this though. I like to tell you, hey, it's a flat 3, it's a flat 6, it's a flat 7. So this is one of those music styles that unfortunately is different depending on where you're going. So it does get a little confusing. My advice is always specify as much information as possible when you're dealing with your Roman numerals. If you look back at some of my older YouTube lessons, you'll see I got lazy with this. I thought, oh, you know, they'll know what the minor chord formula is. I'll just put 7 there. And I started getting these questions. What chord are you talking about? And that's when I realized it's just a good idea to be as absolutely clear as possible with these things, because there's going to be quite a bit of debate and conversation in the Patreon section about a question like that. So I just kind of want to clear that up here right now. So good. Killer intro I got. Awesome. Yeah, love to hear that. So I hope that's didn't confuse things further. Just what I'm trying to specify is that some people think of 7 as not telling you the scale degree. They just think of it as the 7 chord, and they've already memorized what major is or minor is. So just kind of include flat 7 or not if possible. All right. Now let's get to answering some of these questions. I won't be able to answer all of them because, and I won't be able to showcase all of them. So just a reminder that if it's an actual song that's copyrighted, I won't be able to play it here on our streams. I'm really reluctant to do something like that. If it's a song you've written that isn't copyrighted, I am happy to play it on these streams. So Paul Calloway was asking about, he said he found a song, and I encourage you all to listen to it. It's some K-pop or J-pop. I'm not sure the exact origin. But he says that all of the diatonic triads of E-flat are in there at least once. And he says it's kind of a rare beast to find a song using all of the diatonic triads in a major key. And then his question is, how would you go about trying to use all the common diatonic triads in a piece with it sounding intentional or natural rather than it sounding like an academic exercise? So, I think this is a really easy question to answer. I don't think it needs to sound like an academic exercise. I think if you decided to build a 4-chord loop, for example, let's say I'm in the key of G, and let's do this without distortion, okay? Let's say I'm just jamming out on a 4-chord loop, and I've got something like G. Let's go real simple, all right? We'll go as simple as it can get. Is there a reason I can't hear my guitar? I'll figure this out one day. Hold on a second. There we go. All right, so let's say I'm in the key of G and I've got a 1, 5, 6, 4. Classic 1, 5, 6, 4. All right, and let's say I'm doing. Right? I mean, this is not a technical sounding song, right? Nobody's gonna think, oh wow, you're writing really academic music by doing a 1, 5, 6, 4. So, what do we got to throw in here? What do we got? We're missing. We're missing the 2 and the 3. Those are the only ones that aren't being played. So just throwing those in there. 2, 3. Let's go to the 4. Oh, and then the 5. Back to 1, 5, 6. I'm gonna do that again because I really screwed it up. I really butchered it. But it would serve as a good pre-chorus, all right? So here's, once again, 1, 5, 6, 4. And that 2 climbing us up to 3. 3. 4. And then 5. I mean, and then we've got 6 of the 7 diatonic chords in there. Now, you know that, well, what about the 7 chord? What about my half diminished chord, the F sharp half diminished? Well, if you've watched my video on does 7 even exist? Does the 7 chord even exist? You'll know that this chord can really be thought of as a D7 chord. So as long as I have a D7 in there, I think it's a valid interpretation of having my 7 chord. So if I just did D7 here, then I would have all 3 triads. All 3 triads would be in play. So I think it's really simple. Find the chords that you're not using and throw them in there. And the reason I like that is because once you're adapted to just a few chords, once you're really conditioned to just hear, the same 3 or 4 chords, then bringing in one of those chords that we haven't seen before is always going to be like, hey, we have a new arrival to the party. We have a like a fresh face that came in there. And I think that's really important from a musical point of view if you're trying to get something from keep it from sounding stale, right? We get into these issues where things sound repetitive. Well, just bringing in a new chord can kind of solve that issue. And then just to talk about Paul's, observation that he found all the diatonic chords in there. One that I would recommend you to listen to is "You and Me" by Lifehouse. It's a classic, like acoustic '90s rock song, just center of the road rock acoustic song. I love it. I think it's got excellent chords in it. It uses every diatonic chord. It also uses a borrowed chord in there as well. But it's in 6 or 12 or however you want to count it, and it's just one of those acoustic songs that you're supposed to know. Like, you're supposed to be able to write songs like that on an acoustic guitar. It's so easy to do stuff like that, and we'll talk about why it's easy and the key that it's in, because somebody else in later question is asking about what key, what are the differences between the keys. And I think the key of G is a very specifically great key for guitar players, and we'll talk about that later on. So Michael Varney saying, I've seen people argue that B sharp does not exist and that 2 notes make a chord. Well, I've heard people argue some very silly things, and yeah, people that say that B sharp doesn't exist clearly are suffering from Dunning-Kruger effect. These are people that, spent 1 week learning the keyboard, and they say, oh, there's nothing between B and C. That means there's no B sharp. And then they're telling other people about how much they know, even though they don't know that much. So Oh, you had to learn Lifehouse, that is, for wedding. You know what? Yeah, it's a total middle of the road song, but I'm telling you, I wish I wrote that song. Like, that is what the acoustic guitar was built for. That's how you make money with an acoustic guitar, is you write a song like that. It's a very well written tune. I mean, and I taught it to pretty much every single one of my students, just because, like, come on, if you can't play that song, how are you going to make it? Like, as a rhythm guitar player, if you can't play a song, it's the same rhythm pattern all the way through. I can get away with playing a few chords for you all without getting banned, but it's just a G, C add 9, G over F sharp, G, E minor 7, D, C add 9. It's very Goo Goo Dolls-ish, you know, if you think back to that kind of soft 90s rock stuff. But, you know, I mean, it's a killer. I mean, it's very boring after you've listened to it a few times, but it did its job, that's for sure. I still appreciate that song. All right, we're going to move on. Cameron asks, am I a John Mayer listener? I'm not necessarily a John Mayer listener. I am certainly a John Mayer admirer. I think he is a top-notch musician. What did you think about the new album? Well, I didn't make it all the way through the new album. I listened to the first 4 tracks, and they were very enjoyable. I'll just give you my brief thoughts on John Mayer. He gave a very good talk to some students at Oxford, I believe. I don't know. It's a very long lecture. I recommend you all look it up on YouTube. Just type in John Mayer lecture. He's a professional musician at every single level. There's very few things that I can criticize John Mayer for. And I think if you're looking to improve your songwriting ability, your guitar playing ability, I think he's a great person to emulate. I think he's a great person to study. I think he's about as good as you can do when it just comes to let's write music, let's play our guitar, and let's write songs. Now, that said, I'm not a huge John Mayer fan. This all comes back to what do you like? You know, I can go to a 5-star restaurant where they serve up the finest cut of beef and the, you know, most rarest spices that are, you know, from the tallest peaks of the mountains, and you know, and I still might not like it. You know, just because something's good doesn't mean you have to like it. And it's not like I dislike John Mayer. It's just not the stuff I'm going to go gaga over. You know, it's not the stuff I'm going to freak out over. I like it. I'd listen to it any day, and I'm always going to find appreciation in his songs because he's so good that he's going to put stuff in there for me. He knows to serve up the good stuff, but it does come down to taste. So I really recommend listening to his new album. I think the production is always something to listen to. John Mayer has had a very good ear for production, and I think he's pretty active in that. His band is great, so I just think, yeah, awesome stuff altogether, but not a super fan for no other reason than, you know, personal taste. James Thomas, would you consider a lesson in lead composition over various chord progressions and when to use which mode when playing over various chord progressions? I'm experiencing a real mental roadblock in grasping these concepts. So James Thomas, I could certainly give you a lesson on that. I want you to think about this though. Certain chord progressions are going to lock you into a mode, all right? If you look at something like if I'm in C, if my tonal center is C major, all right? If I'm staying here on C major, all right, and this is clear in my tonal center, and my bass is playing. If this is going on, and then my next chord shows up as a D major, I'll leave the G ringing out there because that's nice, right? So we've got a D add 11 or a D add 4. So what I've got going on here right now, you don't have a choice, man. Sorry, if you're trying to work with modes, James, you only have one choice. You've got a chord progression with a major 1 and a major 2, all right? There's only one mode that can accommodate that, and that would be C Lydian. So, you know, certain chord progressions are going to lock you into a mode, and what I advise you do is you find those chord progressions. Find the chord progressions that are specific to a mode. And, I mean, off the top of my head, something like 1 to, like a major 1 chord to a flat 7 major chord, that would be unique to Mixolydian. You're not going to be able to do that anywhere else. So, like, C major to B flat major. If you want to just use modes, you've only got one choice. You're going to have C Mixolydian. So if you can think about the chord progressions that lock you into a mode because of their tonality, and if you're having trouble with that, cheat off of my ultimate modal poster. If you don't have the ultimate modal poster, you can just search here on Patreon and you'll find the digital version that you can download for free. And it gives you suggested chord progressions. And the reason I suggested those chord progressions is because they will lock you into one of those modes. So if you know the ones that you're locked into, then you're not really going to worry so much about this question on which one should you use and when. Like, you'll know that there's certain chord progressions that are basically cut out for certain modes. So I hope that doesn't feel like I'm skirting the question there for you, but I feel like that's the way that you're actually supposed to be approaching this. And to do that, what you're going to want to do is really study maybe just a major scale and all the chord progressions in major, and then pick a mode. Which one's your favorite right now? Or which one do you think is your favorite? Compare major to Mixolydian, and really understand everything you can do in C major versus everything you can do in C mixolydian. And if you understand the differences between these two, then it's going to be really obvious for you as a lead player or as a composer to know which to choose between those two. Then start comparing, start throwing Lydian into the mix. Start working with all three. Now you've got 3 different modes to work with. They all have major-based tonics, and they all have their own different feels, and you're going to be able to use them whenever you feel like you're supposed to use them. So hopefully that helps out. Mr. Mirko is saying, if you have a progression made up of 5th chords only, can you mix modes? Yes, exactly. So if you're doing stuff with lots of power chords, Mirko, then most likely, absolutely, because you're not playing full triads. That's the magic of power chords, is that they kind of enable you to get away with, not thinking of entire triads. Even though there's a 5th on there, I encourage you to ignore the fact that that might clash. It's just one of those things that, I hate to say this, you can kind of just smudge it away sometimes. Like, the 5th is so stable that even if you're just like slurring 5ths all over the place, even if they're not in the key, you can still get away with a lot of that stuff. So, for example, if I'm in the key of A minor and I play an A power chord, that's legal, right? Those are A and E. But if I try to play a B power chord, it would give me the note F sharp, and F sharp is not in my A minor scale. So technically, I can't play an A minor by doing this. But I'm sorry, that sounded like A minor, didn't it? I'm gonna call that A minor. I went up and down the A minor scale. The only thing is that I just happen to have an F sharp poking through. Am I gonna call that A Dorian? Me personally, no. Because the 5th, it's like, think of it as I'm playing one note. Think of it as I just did this. But it happens to be that one of the harmonics, one of the overtones of my notes is very loud. I know, that's the way I'm thinking of it. The 5th is so familiar to our tonic that I don't mind you just throwing it in there, even if it's not in the key. Now, of course, this can cause clashing. This can cause dissonance and trouble, but I encourage you to ignore that sometimes because you can get away with a lot of fun stuff in there. So yeah, Mirko, something like, A and C. Think about how many different scales you could play with just an A power chord and a C power chord if you ignore the 5th in there altogether. Or just something like A and G, you know what I mean? It could be major chords, they could be minor chords. Lots of cool ideas there. Something like A and C, your initial impression, if I'm doing A and C power chords, the most obvious answer is A minor to C major. That's like the most, okay, that's in a key. But if we're just doing power chords, it could, your synth player or your lead player could be doing major chords on top of both of them, and then you get a much cooler chord progression, right? So the power chords could carry either of those. And it's important to keep in mind that power chords are not dictating major or minor. They are ambiguous. Michael Verney, how can you taste full, or how can you taste full breakout of being locked into that mode? How can you tastefully break out of being locked into that mode? I see what you're saying. How can you tastefully break out of being locked into a mode? Well, first off, think about, do you need to break out? There's nothing wrong with staying in that mode. But what I would say is that, think about staying on the same tonic. So let's say I'm in C mixolydian. All right, so let's go back to it. I'm in C mixolydian now. This is C mixolydian. I've got a major 1 chord. I've got a flat 7, right? Let's bring in a minor 5. I'm still in mixolydian, right? If I want to tastefully break out to it, let's just go to C major, right? What's wrong with C major, right? C major's awesome, so here's C major. C, G, F, C, G, F, A minor, G. Right, so this is the chorus for your song. And then bring in the B flat, and now we're back to, right now we're back to mixolydian. So it's about staying on a tonic, maybe. This is one possibility of many, is just stay on your tonic, but just switch parallel modes. Go from C major to C, mixolydian. C major is a good one to come back to. Remember, if you want people to sing, if you want the crowd to be on their feet, if you want people to cry, major's gonna be good. Major's really, 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 really tasty. So I wouldn't avoid it ever. Right. I don't know the band Crescent. You're going to have to send me a link. Send me a link to your favorite song on my Patreon inbox, and I'll take a listen to it, and I can give you my thoughts on it next time. But I'm not familiar with them. All right. Some further questions here on. And don't apologize for asking questions here. This is for the live stream is for. Yeah, I'm answering these questions as well. But absolutely, that's why we're doing this live, is so I can take some questions here as well. All right, so moving on forward. Steve Hunter, what is the best way to keep songs you're familiar with from dominating your new song ideas? I love this question. I started writing down a song idea, and inadvertently, it ends up looking and sounding like a well-known song I like. Well, Steve Hunter, I highly suggest you have at least one other musician you can run your ideas past to prevent yourself from accidentally stealing something. I've accidentally stolen songs before. I accidentally stole Working Class Hero by John Lennon one time, and I had to make some judicious changes to make it not sound like Working Class Hero. One thing I did was change the time signature. So this is a great thing. Like, Working Class Hero by John Lennon is, I don't even know it anymore. I think it's in 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. It might have some 9, 8 in there, But it's like that. And basically, I did a song in A minor that was the same thing. So the first thing I did was, okay, I can't do that. I can't do the same chords in a different key and just keep. So let's maybe change the time signature. And I ended up with. And now all of a sudden it sounded nothing like John Lennon's. Well, it kind of did. And I added some pentatonic runs in it. And since I sound nothing like John Lennon when I sing, my vocals didn't sound like John Lennon either. So I had to change some of the melodies to avoid it, but I kept most of what I was doing and just changed a few things. The melody was, it's been 17 days since I left my own home. So that hopefully doesn't sound so much like Working Class Hero. And later on, there's some power chords and big pentatonic butt rock guitar solos. And John Lennon wasn't big into the butt rock guitar solo, so it definitely kept it from sounding like that. So my point, Steve Hunter, is that don't worry if your song sounds some like somebody else's. There's a billion little things that you can change, and it will irreversibly change that piece of art. So by changing one note that went high and now making it low, that can be enough to completely break the association with a popular song. By instead of using a male singer, you use a female singer. It can totally break the similarities from that well-known song. By choosing to do different styles, you know what I mean? Just by changing the style of the song, nobody would ever recognize that there's any similarities there. So I try not to worry about it too much, but I do worry about it. And cryptomnesia is a thing. Cryptomnesia is the idea of forgetting that you've learned something and then remembering it, but not remembering that you learned it. So you think you invented it. This happens a lot with comedy. It happens a lot with art. It happens a lot with music. George Harrison's a great example where he stole He's So Fine by the Chiffons. And he stole it. George Harrison's a prolific, accomplished songwriter. He did not need to steal music, and yet he stole He's So Fine by the Chiffons. And you can go listen to these side by side. Listen to My Sweet Lord by George Harrison, and then listen to He's So Fine by the Chiffons. They're nearly identical. Now, obviously, they're not identical. You're going to hear many differences, but if you write them out on paper, it's very, very, very hard to deny those differences. And just listening to them, the melodic structure, the chord changes. So, and George Harrison admitted it in court. Like, he realized I probably accidentally heard this and didn't realize I heard this and then thought I invented it. It's what happens. It's a human thing. And I don't blame people for doing that. I blame them for not admitting it when it happens. And I blame them for, not passing it on to somebody that might know those things. So if you've got one of those friends that knows all the songs, like I don't know a lot of music. As somebody who writes a lot, it's surprising how little music I know. So I do make it a point to send my ideas to somebody and be like, hey, out of the trillions of songs, the walking jukebox, that person, like just asking them, does this sound like something? Does this sound like a ripoff to you? And get that other opinion, because you can't always do it all on your own. So 17 days since you left home could be a COVID anthem of you being stuck at home. Yeah, it's actually an enjoyable song. I think I can send you the link here. It used to have a lot of views on YouTube because I used to do stuff on Machinima, but then Machinima shut down and all my funny music disappeared. My most successful song, by the way, just so you know, ever since I started my YouTube channel, I still haven't hit the success of my actual most successful song, which was a song about a video game called Portal 2. And I wrote a country song about Portal 2, kind of country, and we posted it on Machinima. It got like 2 million views, and then Machinima got shut down. And that was like my best single. Like, we sold it on CD Baby. It actually made some money, and I can't even share it with you because the whole channel got deleted. So all right, 13 Flaws is saying, I'm really enjoying the theory course. Great, I'm glad. One of my biggest hurdles so far is the audiation section. Ooh, and I was wondering if you have any tips on recommendations on apps or the likes to work on my ear training skills. So I really do believe this, everybody. I believe that audiation is the most important part of being any musician. I don't care what instrument you play. I think that getting it into your body, getting it into your brain, getting it out through your voice is the most important thing you can do. So as a guitar player, here's what I think that means. I think that means at least getting comfortable doing basic patterns on your guitar. Find the lowest note you can comfortably sing. For me, at this time of day, that's going to be like an F. That's going to be about as low as I can comfortably sing. The highest note I can comfortably sing right now is probably going to be like B. So anything in that range, and let's make it easy for myself. Let's start on C and end on C. Oh no, that's higher than I wanted to go. Let's start on A and end on A. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to play the A major scale. That's going to be my template for training my audiation. So here's the A major scale, all right? You hear it? You got it in your head? Start by just trying to sing your major scale while you play it. Just do da 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 da, and then go backwards ba da 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 bum 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 bum. Do it faster and slower, but here's where it gets more interesting is try skipping. Instead of going bum, bum, what if we go to this note, bum? Can you hear it? Can you hear what the major third sounds like before I play it? It's gonna be bum, 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 and then come back a note to this note. Can you guess what it's gonna sound like? It's gonna be the second, and then you skip up to the fourth, and then back down to the third and the fifth, and back and up and back and up and back and up, and then try it back and try it down and try it down and try it back. Just like that, up and down, these simple patterns, and then try something more complicated. Try skipping up to the fourth. Bum, 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 right? So I had to think about it for a second. I was trapped into thirds. So bum, bum, and then down to the third, and then up to the fifth, or make up your own sequence. What if we went from one, I mean, just like roll the dice, start on one. I think that's very helpful right now. 1, 7, 2, 5. All right. Before you play it, try to say it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 7. I got it. All right. So 1, 7. What's 2 now? 1, 7. Well, 1, 2. So I've got 1, 7, 2, and then what's 5? I already know it's gonna be 5. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 7, 2, 5. 1, 7, 2, 5. 1, 7, 2, 5. And once you have a nice little bass line like this, you should be able to change one of those notes pretty easily because you can go close to it. Instead of 1, 7, 2, 5, what if I did 1, 7, 2, 6? It's not gonna be that much harder because you know where 7 is and you know where 5 is. 1, 7, 2, 5, 1, 7, 2, 6, 1, 7, 2, 5, 1. So that's the idea, is use your guitar, use your voice at the same time, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes when you do this. But it's excellent practice, and I recommend you do different jumps. You just kind of pick a note on your guitar and guess. Hear it in your head, you know, and try and sing it out loud, and just kind of guess with your fingers. Now, we're staying in a scale right now, but it's really important to remember to stay out of a scale as well. So what if we did 1, 7, 2, 5? What does flat 2 sound like right now? That's totally out of key. 1, 7, 2, 5. 1. Well, I know that I'm kind of using other tones to reference, but I'll sing it afterwards. 1, 7, 2, 5, flat 2, 1. Bum 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 ba da da ba da 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 da. So, obviously the flat 6, flat 7, all that kind of stuff. And just doing that on your guitar, it's not hard. It's not hard for your fingers. It's hard for your brain. It's going to be hard for your voice if you sing as poorly as I do. Like, even just singing this note, bah, it's starting to grate on me. It's like literally starting to, like, my throat is starting to seize up on me just because my voice is so naturally a bass, Dale Lee is suggesting arpeggio. So I cannot condone, but I suggest you at least check it out. I think it's worth Googling for sure. So if Dale suggests it, I would at least try it out, see what it works, see if it helps you out. Michael's saying he just started taking singing lessons. I had my range tested and I found it's the same as Johnny Cash. Oh boy. But my speaking voice is light and not bass. And I would have thought you were bass. Yeah. So, well, I am pretty sure I'm a bass. I can't imagine that I'm anything past a bass because I can't sing past that an E. This E is about as high as I can sing, but I can only ping it and then come back down. But Johnny Cash is great stuff to sing. I love singing Johnny Cash, and he's got a range that I can get away with. So, all right. Moving on. So thank you for the question, 13 Flaws. We're going to move on. Roman Zenko. So, hey, what's wrong with 1, 3, 5, 7? I like the transition between the chords, but I haven't found anything about the chord progression. So this is where the debate sprung off. So it's hard. This is confusing stuff. So exactly, he kind of figured it out. And basically, now that we've got it all figured out here, we've got a minor 1 chord, a flat 3 major, which would be C major, a D minor, which would be, we've got A minor, C major, E minor, and then G. So this is a great chord progression, Roman, and why don't we talk about it? So now that you've written it like this, I completely understand the concept of your question. When we wrote it like this, I wasn't completely understanding it. So that's part of the confusion that we were talking about. So excellent job on Eric Stark and Paul Calloway for getting involved here. And Eric especially for helping out with answering this exact same thing. But now let's talk about this chord progression, all right? This chord progression, I'm not sure if this is where you got it from, Roman, but when I hear it, I think the first thing I can give you for is The Unforgiven by Metallica. What I felt, what I've known. Oh, it's backwards. That does A minor C to G to E minor. So what is it? Oh. Okay, I guess I don't know anything with that chord progression. Let's see here. C, or A minor, C, boom, boom. I mean, if you give me enough time, I could probably find something for it. But you're right, it's a lovely chord progression. And when you find something like that, I mean, that's... right? I mean, if everything's been done a trillion times before and I can't immediately name you a song with that chord progression, then maybe it's worth pursuing because it might immediately sound unique. And, I don't know if I say unique because it's still just diatonic chords, but I can't think of a song off the top of my head that's just 1, 3, minor 5, G. But I really like it. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking, Mirko. To live is to die, but it's not the same chords in the same order. It's the same chords in a different order, the same 4 chords in the same order. But playing it, Roman, what I really like is A minor C, E minor G, A minor C, and then to G, A minor C. So going that second time, A minor, C. Lots of cool options after something like that. So I like the chord progression. Why aren't people talking about it? Maybe because it hasn't happened a lot, but I love the chord progression. Wonderful. Yeah. Great question, Roman. I can't answer it. But I would suggest you write with it. That's what I would suggest. Bowtie French Fry. I'm excited for the rhythm course. So am I. I'm trying to mess with singing and playing at the same time, and I'm kind of struggling. Any advice on that would be great. Sure, Bowtie French Fry. I had tons of problems with singing and playing at the same time, and I will give you the solution I ended up to finally being able to do these things at the same time. So let me try to think of something I can sing and play that is like... I don't think I'll get banned for it if I do an actual song because they won't pick up on the fact that my performance is that bad. So let's see here. What do I know the lyrics to? So Johnny Cash, okay, Hurt by Johnny Cash, but it's by Trent Reznor, all right? But I'll do the Johnny Cash version, all right? So it's So, okay, if you know the song, it's picked like this, right? You pick through the chords like this. Let's say I was trying to get used to singing and strumming and playing that song. What I would not do is just start strumming all of the chords. What I would do is this: only play the strum on the time you need to change the chord. So when you have to play a chord, strum that chord, and that's it. Don't only strum it once, and then only change chords and strum it once. And that way you can practice singing and keep your hand work really simple. So something like this, listen. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. So you see how easy this is? I can focus on just my changes. I don't have to worry about rhythm patterns and stuff like that. Now that I've got that going, let's add in a steady pulse. Let's add in some steady quarter notes. That's the next easiest pulse to add in. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain. Now I'll add in some upstrokes, right? We'll do the exact same thing, but now I'm adding in my down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I hurt myself today. Boom, boom, boom. Forgot where I was going with the words, right? All right, and then once you've got something like that, you should be ready to try something like a steady rhythm pattern. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain. Now, of course, I don't really like that chord progression for that song. If I'm going to play that song live, I'm going to try to do the way he's doing it, you know? Or are you good? I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. Right? So what's really important is if you see my hand here, and this is part of the rhythm training course that I'm working on, is to teach you how to do this, to always keep your hand moving, because I don't have to think about my hand anymore. I am such a bad singer, guys. I am really, really, really bad. I know some people say you're great. Okay, I know that I sound fine, but I'm not comfortable with it at all. I'm not comfortable with it like I am my guitar. It takes so much mental power. It takes so much CPU power up here for me to get my singing even remotely passable. Where if I'm thinking about my guitar too, I'm hopeless. So it's about turning the entire rhythmic thing into this robot, and you can train your hand to be a metronome, and it'll keep track of everything for you. So I don't have to worry about it. It behaves itself. I have 100% faith that this hand is going to keep time for me, because it's a subconscious process now. I've written a little function, a little subroutine, and I just activate, and the hand goes, and I can be eating sandwiches, I can be talking to people, and this hand is still keeping that rhythm. So I can put all of my resources into thinking about what are my lyrics, what note do I have to sing, what do I have to do with my breath to get to that note, and without doing that, I'm singing what I'm playing what I'm singing. So it's about turning this thing into something automatic, turning it into something completely automatic, and that's what I would, that's how I would answer that. So yeah, nobody believes that Trent Reznor wrote that song. I mean, most musicians do, but most of the general public doesn't. But man, what a good song. Absolutely good song. As good as it can get. All right, awesome, great. So let's see here. Let's keep on moving forward. We're got 13 flaws. When writing the sharps and flats on a stave next to the treble clef, is there something that determines the order of where you position them? Or is it just about trying to efficiently use space? Well, it is about efficiently using space, and it is about a little bit of both. Now, Paul kind of was on the right track here. He was talking about which signatures get the sharps. And even though he wasn't asking about the exact same question, because he kind of 13 flaws clarified here, Paul was actually giving a little bit of the right question too. And the answer here is, if you look at a key signature from left to right, then what you're going to end up getting is the very, very, very first sharp you're supposed to put in is supposed to be an F. All right. And then after that, if you just think about your circle of fifths, so what's a fifth after F? Well, it's C. So your next one would go in the C spot. But what you're going to do is you're going to end up staggering them. And I always kind of screw it up. I'll be honest with you. I cheat every time I have to write out physically a key signature. I just look it up online because I forget the little. This is a very arcane rule. It's a very specific rule. And I would say that a very, very small percentage of musicians know the exact layout of those sharps and flat. It's about how do we actually lay them out on our key signature chart. So, and it's about staggering them so they're not sticking up all in the same space. And by doing it in fifths like that, you get those nice little patterns. And in flat keys, it does start with a B. So you're going to be kind of lining it up B and then B flat, and you're going to be going fifths from there as well. So, or fourths as well, I believe. Yeah, it's going to be fourths. So it would be from B to E. And so if you look at all of your key signatures that have a flat in it, the very first flat you're going to see is going to be on the letter B. The very second flat you're going to see it on is going to be the letter E. All right, and so on and so on and so on. The next one would be A. So very, very specific question. Good question, but it's very, very, very it's an archaic thing. It's not something I've ever taught. Let's put it that way. Wybrit, I find it challenging to determine time signatures of songs. Can you give examples of how to deduce it correctly? And when writing songs, how should I think around time signatures? So Paul Calloway definitely chimed in with an excellent suggestion. Find the one. That is absolutely the most important thing. Find the one. Wybrit, though, I'm going to give you kind of an uncomfortable answer. And the answer is that to determine time signatures in songs better, you're going to need to be comfortable with time signatures in songs better. It's really difficult to count to a time signature that you've never played in before. But if you've played in 7/8 a lot, it's a lot easier to feel that something's in 7 and have an instinct that something's in 7 and suspect that something's in 7 and know how those subdivisions might work out. If you've played in 13 before, if you've written in 13, you know what I mean? You'll realize it's just little divisions of 7 plus 6. And so you're kind of familiar with those things. So it's about trying to write a lot of those things, writing your own little subdivisions. Just use your hands, use your body, use your simple, very, very simple subdivisions will help get very good will help get you good at recognizing those patterns. For example, 5. 5 can be 3 plus 2. All right, so 3 and 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, dot, 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 dot. That's not something we run into a lot. That's not something we hear in 4/4. Get comfortable with it. Tap it on your, keep one hand going and try keeping the mouth going on the accents, or try 7. 3 plus 2, or 3 plus, what do we do? For 7, we'll do 3, 2, 2. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, dot, dot, and dot, and dot, dot, and dot, and dot, 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 bum, 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 bum. So that kind of stuff, playing around with those different patterns are going to give you quite a bit of leeway there. After that, let's say you're listening to a song, you're trying to figure it out. My advice is find the fastest subdivision you can. So if you're listening to a song and you find where that is this the fastest subdivision? You should be able to find something that you can do this, and it's probably going to be fast. If it's prog rock, it might be a 16th note, in which case you're going to have to count da 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 da, because if they're doing a measure of 9/16, you need to be keeping track of 16th notes, and those are going to be pretty fast. Most songs are only going to be in 8th notes, so you'll probably only have to keep track of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's about finding the fastest subdivision you can, and then once you find that one beat, okay, so let's say you're just doing this and you found something that clicks in. No matter what you do, this fits in on the song. And then you find a one beat and you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you realize, I skipped past they already hit the 1. You just keep doing that, and eventually you'll start guessing, okay, I think it's 11. You try counting to 11 and you get it. So that's the brute force method of doing it. But if you work with time signatures on their own, you're going to find much easier methods to do it, because you will start intuitively knowing, okay, this first part feels like 4. And that just saves you the struggle right there. You already know to count 4 at the beginning. And then, this next part is 3. And then also subdivide, like Paul Calloway is mentioning, trying to do, instead of counting to 11, maybe just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a lot easier than counting all the way to 11. So Eric Stark, are there standard formats for guitar battles, dueling guitars? Might be guitars battling, or might be bass, piano, or kazoos, and the two instruments don't need to be the same. For example, the blues has several standard formats, and this allows musicians to engage in that style quickly. Most guitar, bass, whatever battles that I've seen tend to follow a back and forth call and response. Not complex, but if there were standard structures or unwritten rules that only the guitar gods and their priests know, the high class, please share. Okay. I don't know if there are standard structures for this kind of stuff, Eric Stark. Here's what I think the most important thing is with guitar battles is not stepping on each other's feet. I've worked with so many people that want to do the dueling guitar solo, and they have no idea how hard it is to have two leads fit together. You're essentially talking about counterpoint, but like shred counterpoint. So it's about dovetailing one into the other and having those little sections where they play together and then they go off on their own little thing and one shares the spotlight. It's about sharing the spotlight for sure. I would also say it's about dynamics. What's the point of having two guitarists if they're both playing electric guitars? Like, well, and if one is using a drastically different tone, well, now it makes sense to me. Or if one is, but like, I really don't care about two different guitarists sharing the spotlight. I would much rather hear something like guitar with a horn and then a synthesizer and a guitar or something like that. So, it's a very, very specific trick. And it's great. It's a great trick because it always gets like the crowd up and going when everybody, you get to look on stage and, oh, here goes, oh, there's their solo. But, I think it's a great little thing to throw in the middle of an instrumental section. Let's say, you've got a bridge for your song and there's supposed to be a solo and, you want to add another minute of interest to your song. Well, throw in something like that. Throw in a little bit of dueling, stuff. It's great to throw modulations in here too. Why all share the exact same changes when, you're splitting these kind of dueling, modulate up a whole step and then let this horn player do it. Same groove, same chord progression, just boom. And now a new solo section. Move it up a fifth, like, totally sounds fine. And that way every new solo section is like, hey, a firework, boom, another person. It's like, I just think of introducing, the credits at the movie starring the bassist, modulate, and the piano player, and they're doing their thing. That's fun stuff. That's about as fun as music can get for the performers and for the audience. Musicians love it. The lay public loves it. You can obviously overdo it, but it's pretty hard to. I mean, I kind of listen to that stuff all day long. So I recommend you pursue it. I don't think you don't need to worry too much about structure. I would just say I would like it to be kind of the centerpiece of a song. If you give me a whole song of stuff like that, I don't really care too much, I don't think. But if you give me a great song, and in the middle of that song, there's this exposition, this pure, the World Fair, but of lead playing. That's really cool. That's a cool thing. I've got a song. I've got the shining centerpiece. I have the end of my song. I don't know. I would think that's pretty neat. But I can't give you any more than that, Eric Stark. I just love the idea. And I would say just go for it and try not to have too many sections where people are playing together. If people are playing together, they should be doing unisons. They should be playing the exact same thing. Or they should be playing harmonies, like written harmonies, or they should be playing counterpoint, which, okay, you get it. It's going to be work. That's about it. You know what I mean? Or they're just going to have to really judiciously, or they're just really good and they can do all that stuff naturally. You know what I mean? So hope that answers that, Eric, but I don't have any specific answers for you. Okay, we are going to continue. I got a question from Luke. Luke is saying, how do you select a key when writing a song? If you're starting from square one, what tells you what chords to use or key? I understand it's a personal choice to some degree, but why are G Ionian and C Ionian so common to write in, whereas A flat isn't common? Luke, excellent question. Let me tell you this. If music was composed strictly in our heads, if we didn't have to play our instruments, if all we had to do was just sit there and just make music and then like we could all share it with each other, then I firmly believe that key would not matter. I mean, it would legitimately not matter at all. I think it would be a moot point. I think it would be an irrelevant subject, the idea of key. However, because we have instruments that we have to play things on, keys kind of define what we can and can't do on our instruments. The geometry of our instruments restricts us to certain keys. It makes certain keys cumbersome. It makes certain keys very easy. For example, as a guitar player, I love the key of G on my acoustic guitar because I can play a G chord with one finger as an acoustic player. I can put my middle finger here on G and play that with my thumb, right? And then I can take these fingers and I can play the second string, the third string, and the fourth string, and I get a beautiful G major chord. And I've got these other fingers that are free, so I can right? I can do anything I want with these other fingers. So, okay, let's look at the other diatonic chords of just G major. I can play an A minor. That's really easy to play. The only hard chord in the key of G is B minor. That's a bar chord, but it's still really easy. And you could still fudge it. You could still fake it. You can do different versions. You could, probably come up like a B minor 7 is pretty easy to fake here, and you don't have to worry about playing a bar there. My 4 chord is C major, which I can play as a C major 7, or I can play as a C add 9. That's really easy. This is like, your first month of guitar lesson, you're learning these chords. My 5 chord is D major, which is an easy chord. I can do D sus2, all these open strings. And then I've got E minor, which is obviously an open chord. I don't even need fingers for that if I'm finger picking. And then my 7 chord, which doesn't exist, is an F sharp half diminished chord. I'm just thinking of 7 as not existing. Watch my video on 7. I know it's a dense video. So that's why I like the key of G. I mean, look at how much I can do with how little finger work I'm. So there's some improvised finger picking. You think I can improvise finger picking in the key of A flat? God, no. Okay, A flat, all of a sudden. Look at the chords that are geometrical to my instrument in the key of A flat. I mean, I can't do anything fun. I have to use all of my fingers now just to play an A flat major chord. So where are my free fingers? What can I do? I can't do much. I can do... But I don't have nearly as many options, you know what I mean? I don't have nearly as many open strings to play around with. So that's why the key of G is great for me as a guitar player, all right? If I'm playing finger-style songs, I arrange them in the key of G, all right? Or the key of E minor. This is the same key, relative speaking. So like Lady Gaga, Poker Face, I wanted to put it onto guitar one time. And so I put it in the key of E minor, because I knew it would be easy to take all those notes. That would be a lot harder in other keys where I don't have all those open chords ringing out. So the geometry of my instrument dictates the songs that I want to play and the keys that I want to write in. In last week's composition session, I wanted to write in Mixolydian. And since I wanted to write in Mixolydian, I thought, let's write in F sharp Mixolydian, because then I can come down to my lowest note on my guitar and play a major chord, which is E major. This is a potent chord. This is the bottom end of my guitar here. This is the lowest chord I could possibly play, the lowest major chord I could possibly play. So if I want to play in Mixolydian, well, if I'm in E Mixolydian, then that means that there's a D there, and I'd have to jump up to D. What if I want to go down to D? I can't do it. I'd have to tune down. So let's write an F sharp Mixolydian, and that way I can use the bottom end of my instrument, right? Now, lots of songs are written in A flat and E flat in the flat keys that are not guitar songs. If you get into the brass world, there's lots of flat keys out there floating around in brass world, in brass land, because, you know, those keys are those instruments are better set up for the keys. And I don't know the specifics. I can't tell you for sure if it's the French horn that's better for, you know, E flat or A flat, but I'll tell you this right now, horn players would rather work in flat keys in my experience, because of the nature of that instrument. So I hope that answers that question. And I'm going to check back over in the chat here. It looks like there is a question from Travis. I recently finished the writing progressions in major and minor videos. I went to the borrowed chord videos and then secondary dominant. What's my next step? Which of your videos watch after? So if you're writing in major and minor, if you're doing borrowed chord videos, if you're doing secondary dominance, I would say make sure that you know your inversions. Make sure that you really understand your inversions. Check out the stuff on the augmented chord all on its own, you know, adding in different kinds of chords, because we don't talk a lot about like the diminished chords in those videos, right? Borrowed chords, there's not a lot of full diminished going on when you're doing borrowed chords. Secondary dominant, not a lot of full diminished. So my advice to you, Travis, is really explore the magic of the diminished chord. That's the first one I would suggest, the full diminished chord, the half diminished chord, more so the full one. Full diminished is awesome, the diminished seventh chord. And then the augmented chord, and then apply those two chords in everything you've learned with major, minor, modal chord progressions, borrowed chords, and secondary dominants. It's a lot of powerful stuff right there. I mean, you can go a long way with those tools in your toolbox. I'll tell you that. 13 flaws. I really struggle with coming up with finger picking patterns that sound good. Any basic ones that you can suggest? Yes, 13 flaws. Go onto my YouTube channel. Look way back in history and look for my lesson on Dust in the Wind. I have a lesson on my YouTube channel on Dust in the Wind. Watch that lesson. And because I explain why it's not about dust in the wind. I go through the pattern for you, and then I show you why I taught that. It's not like I'm a big Dust in the Wind fan. I mean, it's a good song, but it's not like I was like, oh, I'm going to, start a YouTube channel to make a video on Dust in the Wind. No, that pattern is so stinking good, and I explain how to take a simple pattern and to expand upon it and really make something fun out of it. So I think that would help. So yeah, Monster Montage. Oh, hey, Monster Montage. How you doing, man? Say I'd mentioned in the Diminished Portals video, some crazy stuff in there as well. So, and Ice Dragon's mentioning that keys with more accidentals are also more comfortable on piano. I do believe so. Yeah, I would much rather work with some of those on a piano, but I do know that certain piano players, don't like some of those keys. Maybe just because when they're reading them, they don't like them, but either way, I think that that's basically my answer there, Luke, is that keys do matter because of the instrument. And remember how many ways an instrument can be. The instrument can be your voice. Sometimes the key of my song depends on my voice. Am I going to be singing this? Okay, well, I need to put it into a key that I can sing. Is, my friend singing this and she's, got a much higher range, but she can't sing like Mariah Carey? Well, okay, I'm going to change keys to really showcase her voice and feature her voice. So I do think that key should be really flexible. I do not think it should be I wrote a song in G. I don't care what key it's in. I care what your song sounds like. And if your singer can't hit those notes, and if your singer is not singing in their power range, change the key of your song. And if people are complaining, it's sharp keys, I don't care. Get good at your instrument, all right? I really think that it's about making as good a song as possible. And if that means changing the key, sometimes that means changing the key. So, all right. Joel, do you have any tips for how to develop an idea, like a riff or a loop, into something more substantial? Yes, I do, Joel. If you have taken my my course, my music theory and training course, or songwriting course, I did a thing on writing melodies. There's a whole lesson on there on melodic structure. I think those melodic structures work in everything we do. I think they work as riffs as well. So we'll talk about things like A and B, okay? So let's write some riffs, all right? I didn't prepare anything. So, no promises, right? No promises on getting something good. But let's blues riff. All right, can't go wrong with some blues riff. So let's start it simple. That's the first thing that I was thinking of is one, then the tritone. All right, so this is as simple as my riff can go. 1, 2. All right, so that's as simple as it gets. Let's get a drum beat going here just so we can, feel the dad rock. I'm loving it already. I'm about to go grab a Miller High Life and listen to this song. Bad drums. We got bad. Too fast. Boom, boom, ba-da-da-dum. So hopefully, okay, you're at the point now where you can write a riff like that. All I did was take the first 4 notes of the blues scale, right? And I just basically went down. I mean, there's not a lot of creativity going on here, all right? All right, so we've got a riff. Pretty boring, but it still works. So what can we do to it? Well, the first thing I can do is change the way I'm playing the notes. So instead of just playing a note, make it a power chord, right? Okay, now, you're kind of used to this idea of the riff repeating over and over and over again, and here's where we change things up. One of the big things I tried to get in my theory and songwriting course was this idea of A-B structure and A-B-C. We talked about SRDC, and these structures, I think, are extremely important. The 3 strikes you're out rule, the call and response, this is the special sauce. This is the secret. I swear to you, this is the secret. And it's about having symmetry in your stuff. So right now, I've got the same thing happening over and over again. Well, what if if I have it go one way and then I have it do something different and then it can happen? So right now, here's the thing. What could complement that? Well, if you wrote it out, you would see the notes are going down. So what if we had the notes go up? So first time, second time, right? Back up the same notes. So now I've got do. Completely different riff now, and it's still dad rocking. Yeah! Ha ha! Paul muted, right? Same thing. So, I mean, all I did, that's the first idea I had is just, I mean, come on. Like, just change things. Change things. It's really, 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 really easy to just do a variation. And now things don't sound repetitive. Now, one of the other big structures I talk about was A, B, A, C. So let's do A. And that was B. Let's go back to A. And now we'll do C. And I'm thinking like, something like a... What do I want to hear? Maybe like a double stop, but where do I want to hear it? That might be what I want to hear the fourth time. Let's hear. Okay, it's good enough. All right, some double stop nonsense. So here's my full riff: A, B, A, C. Bow da 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 da. So that's A, and then da 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 is B, and then back to A, da 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 da, and then here's C. Or something like that. All right, so here's the full riff. Get the butt rock drums going on. Get on your yacht. Start mowing the lawn. Adjust the thermostat. We're dads now. Dad to you. No, you didn't want it, but I'm your dad. So sorry. Ha ha. So I hope that gets the point across, right? It's about variation. It's about ABs. It's about ABCs. It's about ABACs and stuff like that. And if you have one simple idea, and most of my ideas, I'm not going to lie to you, most ideas are derived from scales. I think scales are a great way to start that. And then once I'm thinking scales, the next important thing is rhythm. I'm thinking about not just that A, B, A, C stuff with my notes and my melodies, but I'm thinking about that A, B, A, C stuff with my rhythms. How do my rhythms complement each other? Do I have something setting up a joke? Do I have something like setting up a punchline? You know what I mean? Do my rhythms, or are they just kind of randomly placed all over the place? And I think, I think if you start thinking in structure, I think if you start thinking about shape, then I think a lot of those answers kind of work their way out. So... Cool. All right. Yeah. I need a button that turns on the light show when the distortion comes out. Yeah, I need a fog machine. Something that just rolls out the fog when I start. Yeah, it would be fun. Yep, sorry. We're all dads now. Whether you like it or not. Whether you were already a dad before, well, now you're a double dad. So, okay. Moving on. Let's see here. 13 Flaws. Jake, I've got a chord progression that I've been messing around with, and I'm not sure how to develop it or where to go with it. I don't know how to upload it here, but I have to put it in the Ask the Experts channel of the Discord and tag you in it. I just feel like I'm stuck in a loop with it at the moment, so any advice would be greatly appreciated. Well, 13 Flaws, I'm sorry I didn't see in the Discord. I have not been active in there for a long time. I do encourage you all to go visit it. When I did make it, I warned you all that there was a very good chance I wouldn't be active in it, because those things kind of take over my life, so I decided to kind of avoid it, but I do peek in there. But I didn't see that. So 13 Flaws, here's what I'd like you to do is send me the song. I can't help you without a link to it. So you can email it to me, or you can send me a link on my Patreon, or you can email it to if you email it to me directly, it's jake@signalsmusicstudio.com. You can send it to jake@signalsmusicstudio.com. And that way I can hear what you're working with, or just, whatever it is, and we can answer it through the live stream. So, Jared. Howdy, Jared. Not sure why I get not sure I get why it's called dad rock now. It used to be classic rock. Jake screwing around is way better than the pop music now. So, I don't know why it's called dad rock either. It's just because, that's the stuff if you're, a person who comes up with modern slang, you're probably younger. And if you're probably younger, your dad was rocking out to that stuff when you were 7. So that's why it became dad rock. But it's it's not an insulting term. Nobody should get offended over it. It's just, I think mom rock would be kind of insulting, but no, dad rock should be I think of it as a compliment. Dude, my song, What's Coming to You, to me, that's like the dad rock masterpiece. I tried so hard, and Willing to Bleed is almost, Willing to Bleed by my Dorian. Well, yeah, I love that stuff. So it's not supposed to be, derogatory, Jared, that's for sure. Oh boy, 13 Flaws, you're going to have to send me that ahead of time. To analyze that here live is going to be a little bit of a boring process. But if I have time to check it out ahead of time, then I can answer, I can prepare something for you. But I have to figure out those chords first, and I can't really give you any insight on it just yet. So if you can wait till next week, 13 Flaws, we can do it again next week. I'll be doing it again next time. So. All right, so Lusk Luther's here, and Lusk's got some questions. Lusk, I cannot play this song for you. I don't want to play anything that's copyrighted here. I would not call this song metal. I would call it cinematic metal, but it's pretty metal, What is metal music, and what is its significance, and how is it different from rock music? So, me personally, what I was just demonstrating for you was rock. I call that rock. When I hear stuff like that, This is personal subjective taste. When I think metal, I think of lots of palm mutes and lots of down and ups. If you've got palm mutes and down and ups, I think it's called metal. Now, what kind of metal? Is it classic metal? Is it speed metal? I don't really care. I don't care too much about genre defining and what is it, is it postmodern, Midwest metal? I just can't care. I either like it or I don't. So I can't answer specifically what is metal, but my defining line is it seems like if you have lots of palm mutes and lots of yelling, then I'm probably going to call it metal. Lusk is also giving me another song, which is a really cool song, Lusk. I love this tune that you're playing here for me. What type of the beat in below and how to recreate it? Well, how to create it's a lot of work. What kind of beat is it? I would call it psychedelic trance. I would also call it electronica. I would also call it kind of Goa, G-O-A, from Israel. The band I want you to listen to, if you liked this beat, which is awesome, the band I want you also to listen to is Infected Mushroom. They are my favorite artist in this genre of music. I like other electronic artists more, but stuff that sounds like this, I would classify pretty close to Infected Mushroom. To make music like that, it's got to be fast, and it's got to have, heavy on the synths, and then think about the way the bass tones are. I think the most important things about that is the bass tone. So you're going to have to get good at synth crafting if you want to make something like that. And you can go a long way on Fruity Loops. Fruity Loops is one of the cheaper DAWs, and it works great for synth music. So that's how I would answer that. Now, your next question, Lusker, is why does the 5th note in a scale resolve to the 6th note strongly? And I don't necessarily agree with you. For me personally, it doesn't resolve that strongly. And this is, once again, personal taste. So to me, I don't hear a lot of the 5 resolving to the 6 any more than I hear the 1 resolving to the 2. So let's go back to A major. That's where we were in before, right? I just went up to the 5th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, if you're thinking of why does it resolve to the 6 notes, now I guess here's what you're talking about. This could... I guess it does resolve to the 6, and it probably does because 6 is the relative minor, right? When you hear this, we could be in the natural relative minor of F sharp minor, right? But when I think about resolution, I really think it's about this, the 7th note to the 8th. This is the one that really resolves strongly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 1, right? It resolves to that 8th note. And that 7th note resolving to the 8th note is the leading tone. Now, here's what's important. The leading tone is a half step behind my eighth note, my octave. So the important thing here is that half steps will pull you in a certain direction. If I just do any note, and if I play a half step next to it, it's pulling me to that note just a little bit, right? So half steps are always going to pull me a little bit in the half step direction, that they're going. So I think that, when we're coming up here, the half step is like the most tense interval you can find, besides, I would call it the most tense interval. And we know we're in the key of A, so we're a half step behind the interval that we want to get to, which is our tonic, and we're on a really unstable interval, and it's only a half step behind. It just pulls us up there. So, I think that one's kind of obvious just because that's the way the leading tone works. And if it works there, then obviously it is going to work from 3 to 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, it does kind of want to pull us. So I think that if the next note is a half step away, you're going to have more tension. You're going to have more of a feeling of suspense to get there, as opposed to a whole step. And I think a great example is this in the minor scale. Imagine if I played A minor. I get a flat 7, G and A. There's no tension taking to my root. There's no flare. There's no suspense to get to my root. But if I make it a natural 7, oh God. And now it finally resolves, right? So just that natural 7th wanting to resolve to the root is where a lot of tension comes from. And I think it's because it's a half step, and I think it's obviously because we're, in the key of A as well. So I hope that answers that. Now, my pickup selector keeps hitting my hand when I strum. I know this problem, especially when it's in first position. How would overcome this issue? Honestly, this is going to be a terrible answer, but got to get a different guitar, or you just got to change your technique. This is why guitar players get custom guitars, is because they have all these weird techniques and all these everybody plays a little different. So, somebody finally gets a deal with, Fender, and Fender makes him a guitar, and it's got all these weird things like, I have my bridge offset because when I play, I have my wrist like this, and my pinky's 1 inch longer than the average pinky, so that's why I put my volume knob here, and everybody's different. So, where you're playing, how you're playing, the way you learn, you might just be in a spot where that guitar is not going to work well with the pickup selector there. So it's worth thinking about trading in for a guitar where you have a pickup selector that isn't going to disturb you there. Or just change your technique, but that's a lot harder of a thing to do, and I would question, do you really need to change your technique? If you're hitting it, I understand it. If you're strumming your electric guitar, I could understand that happening quite a bit. It happens to me quite a bit, and it's thrown off my my studio sessions before, because I'm listening to my recording. It's like, what happened? And then I realized my pickup selector got changed mid-recording. So it's not fun. It's a real problem. So Michael Varney, they are Michael Varney's asking if these live streams are going to be archived for later viewing. So they stay here on YouTube, and as long as you're scrolling through the Patreon, then you can go back through the old ones and watch them. And I see Mr. Mirko already answered that. So a list of old live streams, Varney, not right now, but I'm working on putting something like that together. I'm going to hire one of my younger friends to start doing some busy work as far as curating these live streams and getting them. There's so much stuff on my Patreon, and Patreon is a horrible repository for it all. So I'm thinking about getting it all moved over to my website somehow, and I just don't have the time for it myself. So I am going to be paying somebody to do that kind of stuff. So. All right, and then we got one last question from Lusk, and he's asking. Well, Mega, look forward to your rhythm guitar course. So am I. Last minute question. At what stage did you begin transcribing songs in your musical journey? What was the aha moment? Can you please elaborate this story, or was it a practical process? So I don't think there was a, let's see here. I think the first thing I actually transcribed was, I believe my guitar teacher who tried to, basically I had a guitar teacher. Maybe one day I can talk about this experience. But he tried to basically get me to work for him for free. And one of the projects that I was supposed to do for free was transcribe some Bach music onto the electric guitar. So it was a project from my guitar teacher that he was going to make a bunch of money off of, because he was going to sell the transcription. And he did sell the transcription. But that was the first time I tried. That was the first time, I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to make it note for note the tablature and the notes on staff, and it was a giant pain. I hated it doing it. But I do think you need to go through something like that once or twice, because it's a skill, and it's a very valuable skill too. I mean, if you look at what Levi Clay does on YouTube, most of his business is transcribing. People pay a lot of money to have their favorite songs transcribed, and very few musicians transcribe their own music. You know, the only songs I've ever written out that I've done, like written out, are the ones that I've like posted here for you, because I thought it would be fun for you all to see the actual music for it. But very, very rarely am I physically writing out like notes on a staff for anything I do. I'll write stuff out a lot on a computer, like I'll write in on like MIDI, you know, I'll write in a guitar solo on MIDI, but it's not like I'm writing in the eighth notes and like the ties and stuff like that. So, I don't know if it's that important of a process, unless it's going to be part of your job. But I did it when I was about 16, 17. I hated it. It was slow. I sucked at it. And what's more important is to be able to scratch out a rhythm and to be able to figure something out and slow it down and, like, you know, notate something, even if you're using your own system. It's just hard work. That's unfortunately what it is. But everybody can do it as long as you just take the time. So I hope that helps out, Luther. Cool. And Luther Lusk is saying, I create a playlist in YouTube and add just these so I can come back. So that's a very, very good idea. See, you're coming up with solutions to solve my failure to get these streamlined. So excellent. All right. Now we've got a cool question from Wolfie. I really like this question. He's saying, so Wolfie is now has a project he's working on under the name Wolfgang Miyakoda. And his first question is, general feedback would be appreciated. It's my first time actively diving into modal mixture, and it's also my first time writing in Phrygian. Typically, I favor its spicier brother, Phrygian dominant. It might be the sister, I'm not sure. The chord progression is a simple C minor, D flat minor, G7 sus4, and G7. First off, let's talk about how awesome this chord progression is because of its simplicity. C minor, the one chord in C Phrygian, all right? D flat minor, all right? Now, D flat minor, is that really the chord you're playing? I think you're playing D flat major. I think that might have been your typo, because when I'm hearing your song, I'm pretty sure it's a D flat major. And those two chords are from Phrygian, all right? So C minor, D flat major, but then G7 sus4 to G major, not in Phrygian, okay? Phrygian does not have a dominant chord, but he's throwing it in here anyways, and it's awesome. So now we're getting a little bit, right? So Phrygian is really dark, right? But it has a flat 7. So when that G7 comes in, all of a sudden, we have a natural 7. So we're getting a little bit of dominant 5 to minor 1, a little dominant 5 to minor 1, even though we're in Phrygian. And it doesn't quite work, but it does quite work. So it's a really cool, like, mixture of these two. So I really enjoy the chord progression, Wolfie. But let's go on to your main question. You said, my main concern is with the drums. I'm not familiar with acoustic drums, and I tried my best to program something that sounded passable, but I'm not quite sure. So let's take a listen to Wolfie's things, and I'm gonna give you my absolute honest opinion on it. So be prepared. I will not hold back. We're gonna listen to the beginning of Blood Money. That G7. This is the C minor. D flat major. And now Okay, so first off, I think that's awesome, Wolfie. And considering I've listened to some of the stuff that you've been asking me about, I've listened to your questions quite a few times, and you always ask these great questions. And you're always sending me these tracks that are very cinematic, very dramatic, very picturesque. So I'm really glad that you're writing the music that you're listening to. That makes me happy that like you've done a good job of like emulating the style that inspires you the most. It's kind of disappointing sometimes when you're like really into a style of music and you write your first song and it's like, I didn't want to write a folk song. Like I was trying to write a metal song. So it's cool. You've really gotten a good job of hitting that genre pretty well. So let's talk about what I would do here. Okay. We'll start off at the beginning, and I'm not trying to be harsh here, but I'm just going to give you everything I would go through. I think that at the beginning, I am missing the strength of the drums here, all right? The drums are there, but they're giving me nothing because they're like buried back in the mix. I can barely hear what the drums are doing right now. So here's what I would suggest we do. We either decide... What are our choices? Well, there's a billion choices, but here's what I would say. Either decide that our intro's not going to be big, all right? In which case there's no drums at all. Don't use drums yet. And that way the beginning of your song is nice and quiet, right? And then it builds up a little bit for that verse section, and then it ends completely huge. That's our first choice. So your beginning is very small. Let's say you don't like that. Let's say you're like, no, Jake, I wanted it to start off like an atom bomb, like the apocalypse. Okay, if you want it to start off like the apocalypse, you're going to need to do some mix changes here. You're really going to need to turn everything down except the drums. Those drums need to be... And those bass synths that you're using are taking up so much of the frequency range, and they're so loud that they're drowning out the drums in this part of the song. Now, later on in the song, I think you did a much better job of getting the mix together. So as we keep going forward here, we transition into this part. This works. And you were asking about your acoustic drums. I think these acoustic drums sound cool. They're not the traditional drums I would want to hear, and I think they're almost lacking. There's some other element of rhythm that I'd like to hear here, but I really do like what I'm hearing here. Now, this is a section, okay? And what I get worried about is when we copy-paste, all right? We're going to repeat everything now, and it's going to be a copy-paste. And you've only added one thing. You've only added one rhythmic layer there. I want you to add something else there. If you're going to copy-paste a section of music, and if it's a fairly long section of music, you should absolutely make changes to that. Well, not absolutely. A lot of times you should make changes. And right here, it started to feel like, okay, can you give me something more? I don't mean like change the song. Can you give me another element? So maybe another rhythmic element, or maybe just a note. Imagine just a high note playing here, just ringing out. And I actually have... Imagine, I'm going to turn this down a little bit, yeah. Imagine this high note coming in on that, just for that second time. It's going to, or maybe I'll start like... Oh. I'll like fade up to it, and that way it's just another element, because I was missing something. I was missing, like, I want a new actor. I want a new character in the play at that point. Right? It didn't like take me out. It's not like, oh God, what's happening? It's just another little element. So if we can get something in this second half to help prepare for the big part, all right? Because the big part's coming up. Or maybe a rising sound. I love this. This is just a groove. You're slamming ahead. And this is really nice, but here's where your copy paste happens, and I want to hear something here. I want to hear like I want to, that's not the right lead. Don't do what I just did there. But I want to hear something. Like, imagine I'm going to take this down an octave. So I'm going to outline that C minor arpeggio on your copy paste part. So once you do it twice, and just imagine some like just and don't do this. This is like I just whipped this patch up in a second, so it's not the one I want you to, but imagine a melody. Just imagine a melody right here. Oh, shit. Yeah, I can't play the keyboard either, so that doesn't help. If I was playing the right notes, it would probably help a lot. So to answer your question, Wolfie, what I'm thinking about is every time you, to just give you some helpful advice, and to summarize it, make those drums a lot bigger in the beginning. I need to, if we're looking for energy at the beginning, then that's what we need. Or decide to completely restructure your song so it starts off small, gets a little bit bigger, and then boom, the atom bomb hits at the end. But if you're gonna, you'll have to take two different approaches there. Secondly, anytime you're doing something twice, really try to make the second one more interesting, or give me another layer, give me something else to grab onto. Otherwise, my brain is going to be like, that's a copy paste. And even though that's what my brain is hearing, I think the average listener subconsciously picks up on, I think that's where the average listener starts feeling bored, is when they can hear a copy paste. It's something that is the problem of the digital domain, is we get kind of addicted to the copy paste. I think you did a good job of separating, but I think you need to do a little bit better of a job, right? Just getting a little bit more in there. But I really want to stress that I love it. I want to stress that it's very, it gives me imagery, right? When I listen to it, it gives me something to think about. That's the most important thing about art, in my opinion. I don't care what your art is. It has to evoke something in me. It has to make me think or smell or see or hear or imagine. That's what it has to do. But if I consume your art and I get no response, if I get like the same response I get from like waiting in the doctor's office, that's a bad sign for me. You know what I mean? That's not like what we want to be making. We want to be making things that elicit and evoke and inspire feelings, and that inspires feelings. So I think that you've got the hard part figured out. I think the easy part is now, getting mixing considerations figured out and adding in the little icing on the cake. And I say that's easy because there's people that just go to school for that stuff. And, oh, here, I'll compress your thing and I'll mix it. And it's not a lot of art necessarily just to get a good, clean mix going. But I love what you're doing here. I love the chord progression too. I love the fact that when you take C Phrygian like you did and you throw in that G7 sus4 to the G7, you get some leading tone stuff going on there, which is really cool. It's just very, very, very nice. And it's a simple concept. And you did so much with it. Everything you guys heard there, that was 1 minute and 44 seconds of music based around 4 chords. I'd say it's based around 3 chords, just C minor, D flat major, and G. So very, very, very nice work. I like what I'm hearing. I hope that my my little critiques will help you improve your song. You are free to throw them away when it comes to all creative, constructive criticism. It's there to take it or leave it. That's what it is with something like that. But if it was my song, that's what I would end up doing. So. All right, we are going to continue forth here. AJT, I was just wondering if I wanted to use the caged system to move up and down the fretboard with a more interesting scale or mode. Can you suggest some good pointers? Many thanks. Yeah, AJT, I've got the best solution for you. I have the answer for you for caged. I have all the answers for you. Seriously, everything you need to know about caged can be found here. Go on YouTube, type in Scott Paul Johnson, and type in how they use the cage system to play a solo. This guy did so much work on this wonderful lesson on the cage system. I think it should be viewed. Well, it's already been viewed 7 million times. I don't think that's enough. I think that's 7 people that have viewed it 1 million times. No, it's a great video. And honestly, because I'm not a caged pro, I would just pass you along to him. He did an excellent job of explaining the concept. And caged is not one of my special points. It's not something, it's not like I avoid it. It's just there's a whole system there that I never really explored. I just learned the basics to get. I like 3 notes per string scales. I like playing 3 notes per string scales. I like writing and shredding 3 notes per string scales. But they're not very intuitive and they have some issues. So I learned just enough of caged to kind of put the two together so I can kind of do hybrids of both of them. But let's face it, I mean, if you know how to play caged is just a thing that people made up, it's just a way of interpreting your fretboard. You can make up your own system of interpreting the fretboard, and call it whatever you want to call it. But I just realized since it's a system that people made up, that means people kept adding to it and people kept making their own things. And it's just really hard to know what caged actually means sometimes because of how many variations there are. But that one video should really help you out with it. So. I'm guessing you probably already know these artists, but Ivan Torrent, Two Steps from Hell, and Really Slow Motion. Ooh, okay. So I don't know those artists, to believe it or not. I don't know any of them, which is pretty sad. But Ivan Torrent is getting some love in the chat, so it sounds like something I might need to check out. All right, we're almost done here with the questions here on Patreon. We got a question from Johnny saying, I was wondering, I'm having a real hard time with the different emotions and feelings that are involved in chord progressions. Well, those are usually negative emotions that are going on in chord progressions. Now, in chord progressions, he's asking, I don't know about writing them in the correct way, or I don't know what chord goes after the next, or which one should sound better, or how to find a cadence. Please let me know what to do. So, Johnny, here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that you're on your own, okay? But I can also tell you that that you're going to be fine, all right? Here's what you need to do. Write out all 7 chords of a key. Pick a key that you like, all right? Here's the key of, let's go back to G, all right? Write out the 7 chords of G and pick one of them and start asking yourself to get familiar with it. Start testing yourself to get familiar with it. So let's pick the 6th chord. If I'm in the key of G, what is my 6th chord? It's E minor. Do you know what it's going to sound like when you switch to E minor? Do you know what it's going to physically sound like? Can you hear it in your head? Do you know what it's going to feel like when you switch to E minor? Can you imagine the kind of lyric you would want to sing over that? I do. I know 6. 6 is like, imagine you only had 7 friends, okay? And they were called tonic, submedian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? That's your 7 friends, all right? And you know all 7 friends. You know that 6 is a bummer. 6 is always moping around. He's always talking about his breakup, and he's always, looking at the stars, thinking about his next life. And I know that about 6. I know 6 is gonna. You gotta call up 6 every once in a while and check up on him because he sounds like this, right? Right. So this is 6. He's just kind of a moper, right? That's my 6 chord. So I know that about 6. I don't have to. And I've known that because I've spent a lot of time with 1 and 6, 1 and 6, 1 and 6. That's my association with 1 and 6. I don't want to tell you what it should be for you because you might say, you know what? I don't know what Jake's talking about. It's not like a depressed thing. It's more of like a laid back thing. You might hear that as a really like chilled out thing. Cool. That's how your brain is going to need to interpret these things. That you need to associate your emotions with these chords. You need to identify all 7 chords just by spending time with them. Now let's do 1 to 4. Before I describe it, let's just listen to it. Here's 1 and then 4. Right? How does 4 feel? If you're 1, how does your friend the 4 sound? 4 is always nice to run into. 4 might be my best friend. 4 might be like, I'm always glad to see him. He's not too much. 4 isn't like, what's going on? No, 4 is just like stable, always there, always optimistic, always in a good mood. 5 can be a little much. Listen to my 5 chord. Like 5 can be like, always jumping, hey, I'm so glad to see you. We're best friends forever. Okay, yeah. Okay, like 5 is a little too happy for me sometimes. I know these about my 7 friends, right? I know their feelings. And if I'm thinking and writing and I'm trying to get an emotion across, I know which one of my friends needs to come in to star for you each at this time. Now, this is for me. I've got my own emotions with them, but you need to draw your own emotions. So you're going to need to sit down with your guitar and 2 chords, literally 2 chords. And you're going to have to ask yourself these stupid questions like, what are you, my 3 chord? How do you feel? Are you my friend? Like, I know it sounds stupid, but I swear it works. And just doing this a little bit of time in different keys, try it in different keys, try it with different voicings, and see if that emotion still comes across. And you'll realize, yeah, even in different voicing. So here was G to E minor in this voicing. What if we do it in a completely different E minor or a different voicing? What if we do it like way up here? Totally weird inversions too. G major and E minor. G major and E minor. Now, of course, this is an inversion of G major, but it still feels like I was kind of happy and then I ran into Bob the Bummer, you know what I mean? So it's the same chord progression, has the same emotional quality, doesn't matter what voicing I'm in. So Mirko saying, how do I know all of your friends? That's a good group of folks. You can do a lot with those 7 friends, I'll tell you. Even number 7, you let 7 come along for the trip, even though he's, just bring him with. 13 flaws. Do you have any vids on negative harmony and how to best use it to spice up chord progression? Okay, dirty little secret, alert, you can unsubscribe now, you can cancel your account. don't really know that much about negative harmony. I've learned it a few times. I like learned it and been like, okay, I know it. And then I remember going back and like, wait, how do you do negative harmony again? And then I learned it again and I was like, oh, well, now there's different kinds of negative harmony. And I just don't care. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just don't care. Like, maybe one day I will. There's a ton of things I haven't cared about that one day I grew up and I was like, oh, I care now. A lot of the modes of harmonic minor that way. There's lots of things that I thought this is useless. And then later on, I didn't think it was useless. I'm not saying, I would never say negative harmony is useless. I'm just saying I haven't found any use for it. So I cannot give you a lesson on it, 13 flaws. I just feel like there's a billion things to learn before you even start thinking about negative harmony. I just don't see why it should ever be on the list of things to practice until like you're literally done with everything else. Like, that would be my opinion. Have you written 100 songs that people like? Okay, maybe now start worrying about negative harmony. But learning negative harmony is not going to assist you in making 100 songs that people like, you know? So sorry if that's harsh. I'm not discouraging you from learning cool things. There's a million things I've learned that I still have no use for, and I think that's cool. If it's exciting to you, go learn it. That's why I was like, hey, negative harmony, that sounds awesome. That's why I went and learned it. And then I realized, okay, this isn't actually as practical as I thought it would be. So now, Jay Gober saying, I started listening to some synthwave. Yeah, but I noticed that many of the songs are very short, often only a minute and a half. I also watched a video by Andrew Huang on Do This to go from a song to a loop, but he didn't vary the chords much at all, even between different sections of his song. The questions here are most synthwave songs all this short? And do most composers in this style limit themselves to one basic chord progression for the whole song? So synthwave is back, for sure. And I would say no, not all synthwave songs are this short, but do keep in mind, Jay, that we're in the age of the teenage composer. We're in the age of the beat maker who is now a composer. So, you know, there's a lot of kids that are 16, you know, that are making songs at home. They're making really cool synthwave tracks because they found out how to make a loop, or they bought a loop pack and they're using presets. And like, I'm not like making fun of this stuff. It's just the reality of the situation is that that's a very easy style of music to make. It's hard to make a full song. So a lot of beginner composers, you know, it's very memey, it's very trendy. So a lot of that stuff you're hearing, I suspect, is coming from a younger generation that is inexperienced at composing, but very experienced at getting good sounds. It's very easy to make good sounding music this day, even if you're bad at composing. It's basically right there for you. And that's great. I think it's great to empower people to make music easier. I don't care if it gets easier. It's not a competition. It's not supposed to be some noble challenge to struggle through. So I think that experienced composers are going to be making longer songs. I think that's a thing. But there might be something else on there that I'm missing out on. Like there might be a YouTube click that short songs are trendier. I don't know. But I wouldn't also say that composers limit themselves to one basic chord progression for the whole song. I know it's a really, really wide, diverse genre, and I love it. And I'm probably going to be making some of it in the not-so-distant future because it's so fun. It feels so good. You know, that my 80s song, Come Back Home, I consider that a synthwave song. It just doesn't have tons of synth in it, you know. It's got enough in it. But I love that stuff. It's fun. It's easy to make. It's enjoyable to listen to. So I would even call some of that not new John Mayer. I would even call some of that synthwave stuff. That first song is very like synthwavy and all, or maybe not. Maybe you could just call it a Toto ripoff. But I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, Jay. It's kind of a tough question to answer, but I would say keep exploring. And I don't think that I would say that lo-fi songs are traditionally shorter than the other ones just because of the medium through which they're played. Most lo-fi songs are pumped through something called lo-fi hip-hop radio on YouTube, and people started making tracks just for that channel, and those tracks were short, so people started making short tracks just for that channel. So, you know, some things like sometimes it happens like that, where once again the medium dictates the art form. So Jared's saying there's a great synthwave tutorial out there by a guy named Time Cop 1984. Now, I'm sorry, if you're going to take a synthwave tutorial, take it from somebody with that name. I don't care who that person is, but their name is Time Cop 1984. I would suggest they probably know what they're doing. They've picked a good name, so. Jay's asking, could synthwave tracks also be bits from computer games? Absolutely, they could be bits from computer games. You know, as long as it feels like the 80s to me, as long as it feels like I'm computer hacking in the 80s, that's what I call synthwave. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also seeing Michael Varney's asking about undertones. Undertones could mean a few different things. I'll do a video on those one day. But yeah, Jay, I'm really excited to see what you do, man, because I enjoy that kind of music, and I think it's fun. I would absolutely help you out, you know, with all the stuff on Reason. I love making stuff like that. it's just great music. I mean, that's why I made it. I have another synthwave. Well, I don't know if it classifies as synthwave, but this one is one that none of you have heard, and I'll even play you the video. But this is a top secret. You might recognize that person. This was my first 80s synthwave song. '80s mustache, '80s facial hair, calligraphy. So that one is, you know, that one's fun. That one's from probably, that's kind of old. 2014 is when I made that. So yeah, that's about, what, 7 years ago. So, you know, I've gotten better in the last 7 years. That's the good news. As my the production quality has improved a little bit. But it's fun to make. It's just really fun, you know? And even though I wasn't around, like, consciously for the 80s, that stuff is great. I just think it's fantastic. And I think, yeah, there's plenty of great 80s music that has yet to be made. It's clearly back in. It's clearly popular again. So go write it. Go jump on the bandwagon. It's not fine with me, so... Judd August saying, I appreciate to what lengths you will go to express silliness. Yeah, things are silly. It's better to be silly. Everything's silly. I mean, come on. Have you looked around? Have you been on this planet? All right, folks. Well, we have all the questions are answered, and it looks like it's been almost 2 hours here. So we're going to pretty much wrap things up. If you have any last-second questions here in the chat, we will answer them. Tomorrow, we are going to do another live stream. I might move that one to the evening. That's going to be a composition live stream, and we are going to split that up into doing prog rock, and there are a lot of requests to do soul and Motown stuff. So I'm going to maybe approach that topic during tomorrow's composition live stream as well. And Okan, you're right, 671. That's the whole song, by the way. The entire song is just 6, 7, and 1, except for the verses. The verses are just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Except there's one instance of the minor 5 chord. So it's funny. Like there's just like, yeah, it's just a silly song. So, all right, folks. So, okay, yeah, I think that'll do it. So if you're going to stick around, well, I'll make a post tomorrow about the live composition thing. I'll make a post about an hour before it starts, and we'll make some tunes there, and hopefully I see you there. But thank you for submitting your questions. This was fun. It always is fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. And like I said, hopefully I can start editing these up, or we're going to get some of them edited up here to upload onto YouTube. But until then, you can access these later on. So good night. Jared, I got to get a hold of you. I realized I owe you an email, and I'm just now realizing that here as you were in the chat here, because you and I have an appointment with destiny. So yeah, and Okan, I talked to Karen, my singer here. I'm actually supposed to record the drums tomorrow for my oldies song. I'll clarify, it's not a Motown song that I'm working on. It's Motown-ish. It's an oldies song. But we're going to try to put a little Motown in there. But even then, the flat wounds are what I want for that bass guitar. So, Michael Varney, I'm expecting it's going to be the same time. But it will probably be, it'll probably be the same time. It might be in the morning, though. It might be like 10 a.m. We're going to see. It depends on how my schedule shakes out. There's going to be one thing on my agenda that is still uncertain when I have to do it. So that'll determine it. So thank you all. Excellent evening. Thank you for joining. You're the best. And,